Our speaker for today is somebody that I have very much respect for. Anybody who's been in the San Francisco Bay Area for more than 10 minutes knows who Willie Brown is. Attorney, Assembly Speaker, two-time mayor of San Francisco. Go 49ers. Author, actor, newspaper columnist, daily radio host, and the founder of the Willie L. Brown Institute of Politics and Public Policy. With all he has on his plate, it's really an honor to have him here today, and I'd like for you to all give him a warm welcome. The Honorable Willie L. Brown, Jr.
Hello, how are you? Ms. Sweet, thank you very much for the kind introduction, and thank all of you for the warm reception. I am, of course, delighted to join with your board of directors, your general manager, your officers, and all of those who are assigned to run BART, to pause on the occasion when the nation has decided to pause, to assess the nation's commitment to all of the ideas that were the hallmark of Martin. I must tell you that it's now more than 4 decades since Martin was among us. Martin was assassinated, gave his life for that in which he believed. He would still be with us today if he had just remained an ordinary black Baptist preacher. Nobody would have cared. The fact that he caused all of us to become more aware and an awakening in the entire nation, if not the world, made him very much an object of hate by deranged persons all over the land. And some of those deranged persons, on more than one occasion, challenged themselves to see whether or not they could rid this space of Martin. They eventually did. But this nation, and we as a people, will not let their incredible, horrible act interfere with the pursuit of what Martin was all about. Now, some people would say, of course, that the day Barack Obama took the oath of office as the President of these United States, that was the time Martin would have said, "It's over, a job well done." I beg to differ with that conclusion, because I see too often all of the things that prompted Martin when he participated in the Montgomery bus boycott, all the things that prompted Martin to write that letter from a Birmingham jail, all the things that prompted Martin to participate in the Selma March, all the things that prompted Martin to give that legendary set of remarks before so many people at the March on Washington, all the things that prompted Martin to convince our then President Lyndon Johnson to sign the legislation that afforded us the opportunity to vote, that afforded us the opportunity to have a foundation as a government as it relates to the word of civil rights. All those things are still desperately in need of attention and implementation. And that would be what Martin would say. He would say, yeah, I'm proud of the brother who took the oath of office, but there are too many brothers and too many sisters who've been left totally and completely behind by the design of this basically racist nation. And until we address the issue so that every brother and every sister and every human being of every color could feel just as comfortable pursuing the quality of the education that Barack Obama got, pursuing the quality of the profession that Barack Obama followed, pursuing the pioneering effort that Barack Obama made to ultimately achieve the presidency, things have not changed. And I must tell you, that would be his conclusion on this day. He would conclude that the incredible efforts that have been made by all kinds of people to reverse the Voting Rights Act, to challenge the Civil Rights Act, he would conclude that there is among us a level of evil on the question of equal rights that requires constant attention, and that level of evil cannot be eliminated just by words, that level of evil cannot be eliminated by so-called occasional attention. Just think, among everything that BART does, you would assume that there'd be no reason why anybody would want to challenge, with all the rules and regulations, and with the commitment, and with the number of people of color, and with the number of women that you've elected and put in governing positions, you would think that there would not be some problems still existing within just an agency like BART. But you and I both know that those problems exist in BART just as they do in the rest of the nation. And King would be so addressing those. He would be making all of us incredibly uncomfortable. I could see Barack Obama squirming in the presence of Martin Luther King Jr. when he would call to Barack Obama's the attention that Barack Obama needs to pay to this nation's absence of true commitment to the business of equality. And he would do so in the most unfearing way, in the most caring way, and in the way in which there could not be anything except extraordinary risk that he would be taking. I can imagine King watching the Republicans debate among themselves about which of them ought to be given the responsibility to take us back to a past that was horrible in this nation. And King, of course, would raise the question. King, of course, would raise the questions about their commitment. He would likewise challenge Democrats in the same way that he would challenge Republicans. He'd raise questions with Harry Reid and that entire band of U.S. senators that sometimes can't seem to find their way on establishing the rules and regulations so that everybody below them would be responsive to the incredible needs. I marvel at how long it took our governor, Jerry Brown, to come aboard and address the question of Prop 209 in the fashion that it needed to be addressed. I marvel at how we tolerate Ward Connolly and his advocacy for everything that's horrible on the question of equality. I marvel at all the things in the way in King would want us to marvel. But Martin would not want us just to be observers. Martin would want us to be full-time participants in the struggle. He would want us to start every day of our lives addressing what we know to be inequality. Every day of our lives addressing those things that are race-based, those decisions that are race-based. And he would feel it really important for us to make ourselves, our neighbors, our friends, and our relatives equally as uncomfortable. Just go back and look at how this man did what he did. When the Montgomery bus boycott started, people often think that it was an easy task. Martin's most difficult problem with the Montgomery bus boycott was not the white folk. The problem was the black folk. There were black leadership watching this young man challenge the system and saying, we really don't need to do it the way that he has advocated. We really don't need to do the boycott in the way in which he's advocated. Because you see, it was not Rosa Parks who first started saying, I'm not going to move my seat. There were other occasions in other cities in the South when persons of her ilk, when women in particular, maids, had been raising hell and getting arrested and dragged off to jail as a result of their not being willing to adhere to how the system was supposed to work and would be continuously work. I remember so clearly my own mother, as a maid in Dallas, Texas, regularly going out to Highland Park where she worked when she didn't stay overnight in this residence that was part of her job. And she'd get on that bus, and that bus had a process by which you'd pick up a piece and move it, a plaque, and you keep moving it back and forth based on the population on that bus. Montgomery was just that way. Many other places, Baton Rouge was that way. Every place in the South practically was that way, where there were people of color, and they were treated hostilely if they didn't obey the business of getting up and moving the sign as more white people came on the bus. And there were, of course, people among our folk who said to Martin, we don't need to do it that way. We can simply file a lawsuit, and we can wait for the end result of that lawsuit. Of course, Martin said very clearly in that Baptist church in Montgomery, Alabama, on those nights when the challenge was being put, he said, no, we shouldn't wait for the filing of the lawsuits. We should do both. We should raise the conscious level of people who are mistreating us. We should cause others in this nation to have to opine on whether or not that should be tolerated. And of course, the preachers, the older preachers, said, go right ahead, young man. You chair that part of this deal. We're going to stick with the old way of filing the lawsuit. And of course, they sent this young man out to do their bidding. And this young man went out, and he was surrounded by a group of other young men who knew how to prick the conscience of this nation by way of communications. Can you imagine how much more sweeping it would have been if Martin had had Facebook, if Martin had had Twitter, if Martin had had any of the current methods of communication? But he had none. He had to do it the old-fashioned hard way. He had to get the black press to first write about it. He then had to get the alternative press, particularly the left-wingers, to start writing about it. He had to get somebody at the national news level to just pay a little bit of attention. And when they did, the Montgomery bus boycott became the soul of the nation under examination. And it was all caused by this young man, this very young preacher, this preacher who was going to come the next time around, so to speak. Well, he moved the whole nation on the Montgomery issue. He moved us into a whole new world of how do we do it. And from that bare, small beginning, the whole concept of King and the whole message that he was delivering became very much a part of the body politic for this nation. The NAACP, the Urban League, SNCC, the Nonviolent Organization, all became a part of what King was trying to do, just growing out of the Montgomery bus boycott. You know the rest of the story from here and from there, but it was a one person doing the job of raising the conscious level of this nation. And I must tell you that in 2012, Martin Luther King Jr. would tell you that we're still in the grips of the Montgomery bus boycott. There's still just as much racism being practiced in this nation at every single solitary level, in spite of the existence of Barack Obama, in spite of the existence of people who've been mayors and people who have been governors and people who've been lieutenant governors, in spite of the fact that Eric Holder is the Attorney General and Kamala Harris is the Attorney General of the state of California. The level of racism still exists in their individual departments. The level of racism is there because you see the whole concept and the whole educational delivery system in this nation has so reinforced that concept and that practice, and we are now so grossly into great denials. We do one little number with two contractors, and we applaud ourselves that we brought about a change. And those two little contractors never grow beyond institutional change. And so I say to you at this time and at this place, when we are celebrating the life of King, when we are acknowledging what Martin actually did. Our dedication must be, at some point, we want to celebrate what we have done and the manner in which King would want us to do it. And until we get to the point where we can express our own conduct with the same level of pride that we express with King's conduct, then King's dream has not been achieved. I believe that if King was here, those would be his words. And his words would be that each one of us must take the extraordinary step to be king-like in our own sphere of influence, no matter where it may be. We must look for the opportunity. We must look where there is an injustice. We must look where there is a problem. And we must, without fear of any reprisal, be that as it may, we must react to the existence of those issues, and we must call attention to the existence of those issues, and we must cause everybody to be equally as responsible. When that happens, then the dream that was King's will begin to be a reality. Until then, keep the faith. Thank you.